Good evening. I'm Mark Meister, the Executive Director of the Museum of Russian Art, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to tonight's virtual tour of our wonderful new holiday exhibition, Masquerade for New Year, presented by our Chief Curator, Masha Zavialova. We are also privileged to have Kim Balaschak, the donor of many of the items included in the exhibition, participating in tonight's program. For questions during the program, please use the chat button. Both Masquerade for New Year and our major exhibition, Leaders in the Masses, makeup paintings from Soviet Ukraine, will be on view through January 10th. Masha will be presenting the final virtual tour of Leaders in the Masses on November 18th at 11 a.m. And you can register on our website. Before beginning, as always, I want to thank those of you who are our members for your support, particularly during this difficult period. For those of you who aren't members, please consider joining the museum, which is open 7 days a week. Members receive free admission as well as discount at our fantastic museum shop, which you can now access online at shoptomora.org. Also, we are in the preliminary period leading up to Give to the Max Day, which is November 19th. Please consider showing your support for the museum on that day or leading up to it using the donate button at our TMORA.org website. Finally, I'd like to thank Moore's Insurance Management for its sponsorship of Masquerade for New Year, and Michelle Massey, the museum's Director of Public Programs, for organizing this event. With that, I give you Chief Curator Masha Zavialova.
Good evening, everyone. It is my pleasure today to introduce our new exhibition, Masquerade for New Year. This is our annual tradition to install holiday exhibitions. And this year we installed it in the lower gallery, but this year it's different. It is centered around masks. I wonder why. Yeah, it's all about masks. And even all related materials like photographs and ornaments are connected to our presentation of our collection of masks. First of all, I would like to thank our installers, our installation team, who were working very hard to install this exhibition. Holiday shows are notoriously difficult to install because these are three-dimensional objects. They're not like paintings. Each of them is different and they require individual installation options, risers, stands, mounts, all kinds of things. So I would like to thank Jeannie Tyson and Michael Waltz for working so hard on the exhibition. Also, Evan Wesselman and our wonderful interns, Lydia, Rachel, and Hannah, who used to be our intern last year and should join us this year and was a lot of help, as was Rachel and Lydia. Thank you very much for your help. But also I would like to thank and express my very deep gratitude to the person who originated and initiated and put together this collection. This is Kim Balaschak. And let me now start sharing my screen. I would like you to go inside the exhibition. This is our opening, and I would like you to be inside the gallery. And let me do the full screen. Our exhibition Masquerade for New Year will last until January 10. And while I'll try to cover a lot of ground today, but I welcome you and encourage you to see this exhibition in person, as not only paintings, but especially objects like three-dimensional objects. They want you to be present, close to them, to appreciate the color and the shape and how light is reflected in all of these many beautiful shapes, and how the exhibition is structured in real space. So really, it's a wonderful experience to walk through this show, and that's how it looks. You see, this year we decided to install masks in a slightly unconventional way. They're not in cases. We showed these masks before, but protected by vitrines, by glass. But this time we decided to be a little bit extravagant, and we showed about 24 masks on mannequins. They come from the collection of Kim Balaschak, but also the collection of Blaine Bolden, who has been our contributor to our holiday exhibitions and other exhibitions for many years. And thank you, Blaine. I hope you are present with us today for loaning us these wonderful masks. And the Baba Yaga on your left is from Blaine Bolden's collection, as well as the Old Man Hatabach, I believe. And one of the unusual objects on display that I, honestly speaking, frankly, I included into the show only yesterday. It is not quite museum object. It's not even part of our collection. It's probably part of our research or educational collection, because it's not something that came together with the ornaments as part of that, but it came together with the donation from Kim. And this is the announcement of Kim's large exhibition in Moscow in 2002. It was held in the Museum of Decorative, Applied, and Folk Art. It's the biggest, the major museum of decorative arts in Russia. And it was under the aegis of the Ministry of Culture of the Russian Federation. It was called The Glimmer of History, in a tree bauble from the collection of Kim Balaschak. And this is a quote that I found online from a person who visited this exhibition in 2002. And this person said, it's a longer story, like the description of her visit. And they say, an American Kim Balaschak made a gift of amazing set of emotions to us. And Kim also published a book about the Russian New Year ornaments, where she says, which means Kim, dedicates this book to the Russian people who preserved this amazing tradition of New Year celebrations against all odds, all the hardships and ordeals of wars, repressions, and deprivation. This holiday is part of the Russian soul, symbolizing the undying life force of the people. And here I would like to stop sharing my screen and ask Michelle to bring Kim Balaschak into this discussion. I hope she is present with us today.
She is. We're going to get her on here right now.
Kim, you should unmute yourself. Good. Kim, so great to see you.
It's so great to be here. You bring me on right after you bring me to tears.
No, you look great with tears.
You know, I've been coming to Minneapolis in November now since almost 10 years. And this is the first year I'm not able to be there with you. Makes me very sad.
Mm-hmm. So Kim, you see, this year we decided to install almost all of your masks can you say just a couple words about how you started your collection?
I'd be happy to. Well, my husband Jim and I moved to Russia in 1995, and in 1998 we decided to stay in the city over the holidays. And so I wanted to put up a tree. And so being a flea market scavenger like I am, I discovered the old antique Soviet ornaments and put up a small tree with them. And following year, I laid them out on a chair, and I realized that I didn't have just a collection of ornaments, but in fact, I had a slice of the history of the country that I was calling home. And that's where it started. And it's finished with you.
Yeah. Do you remember what your first ornament was?
I do. It was about a 7-inch Grandfather Frost figure from just a charming woman who was sitting there in the freezing cold. She had a box with some sort of a towel on top of it, and there was this Father Frost. And my Russian was not really too polished, but I understood enough of what she had said when she said to me that this ornament was at least 50 years old, because she was in her 50s. And when she was a child, it was her responsibility to place it under the tree. And so I found that very endearing. And you have that ornament there.
Yeah,
in
and
Minneapolis.
so that was a Grandfather Frost
It was.
to put under the tree. And what was one of the first ornaments that, I remember you mentioned it once?
Well, one of the ornaments that I had seen, because in this process, I was able to meet a few other collectors. And one of them had a cotton Puss-in-Boots. And I was, first of all, a cat lover. And so I spent years searching for another Puss-in-Boots. And I happened to be away when one appeared at the market, and the vendor put it aside and waited for me the following week, and then shared with me that I now had Puss-in-Boots.
Thank you so much. So I will start sharing my screen again. I would like our visitors and viewers to go back into the gallery and see the treasures that you collected, and which is always such a pleasure to work with. And you know, every year when I work on our holiday show and begin to open those boxes, I'm just blown away by the thoroughness and the depth of the collection. For example, this year I found some tinsel and unpacked confetti and serpentine and artificial snow that they have not yet been accessioned, so I didn't quite look properly into those boxes, and I found them. Wow, Kim, that's great. You are really an amazing collector.
And I would say that Masha Zavialova is an extraordinary curator because she loves the collection. And I'm amazed at what you put together and can't wait for the tour.
Okay, let me share my screen again, and here it is. So this year we decided to show these masks on mannequins, and let me just talk a little bit about what went behind the scenes in trying to show them on mannequins. Thanks to Susan Johnson, whose collection of Ukrainian textiles we showed a couple of years ago, we had access to a couple dozen mannequins. So you see these black mannequins from Sue Johnson's collection. They're props, they're not part of the collection, but they were so helpful. It was so great that we had them available right away. And then, but the next thing to figure out and think about how to display these masks were costumes. Of course, there were Halloween costumes available. We could buy them online, but I just did not feel that these Soviet era masks, that some of them I own, some of them I remember, would go well with American Halloween costumes. So it's just everything in me was against this idea. And I thought that we could make our own costumes. And my wonderful installation team set to start working on creating these costumes. And so they are very close to what might have been created in families back in the Soviet era. They're just plain cotton fabric, very plain designs. Some of the fabric was even painted. You see this cat and this amazing mask of a cat from Kim's collection. These cat masks, they come probably from the 1950s, I believe. They are early masks, probably even late 40s or even late 1930s. They were sculpted individually and then made from papier-mâché. They're really works of art. And later masks in the 70s were made from pressed cardboard, and we will see that they are quite different from these wonderful masks. So the cat wears this costume that we actually painted with the leftovers of the paint we paint our galleries with. And some of the costumes are made of old bed sheets. And that's what my mom would use probably for, and that's what she did when my sister had a costume of a fox, the 1960s. My mom made a little skirt and just used the textile fabric dye to dye it orange. And I didn't get that costume. I was always envious, still envious to this day, that my sister got to have a costume of a fox and I didn't. But I actually made, well, we have a fox here in this exhibition. So if we go back to this quote from a visitor to Kim's exhibition in Moscow in 2002, you remember that this quote says that, actually quotes Kim saying that these ornaments and these New Year things speak to the spirit of the people that carried the tradition of New Year winter celebrations throughout all of the wars and repressions. And indeed, the tradition of celebrating first Christmas and then New Year had a difficult time in 20th century Russia. Before the revolution, Russia celebrated Christmas. It was a Russian Orthodox country, mostly, with the large populations in Central Asia of Muslims and Catholics and Protestants, and the Jewish people with the synagogues and mosques and Catholic cathedrals. And there were all kinds of celebrations for New Year, for the change of the calendar. And a lot of people celebrated Christmas. But then 1917 happens, the Bolshevik Revolution. And the Soviet government, Lenin's government, sets out to eliminate religion as such. And first, in the early 20s, Christmas kind of lurked in the margins of the society, but close to the end of the 1920s, Christmas became not just discouraged, but prohibited. And the Soviet government, who started a full-blown anti-religious campaign with the destruction of churches and sacred art and the persecution of priests very early on in the 1920s. And by the end of the 1920s, with Stalin consolidating power, the Soviet government even tried to get rid of the traditional calendar, change the names of the days and the holidays, just eliminate everything that the old calendar had and introduce first 5 or 6 day week, where the days of the week were called day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and day 5, and again back to day 1. And Kim's collection actually has, which I also discovered quite recently, this amazing item. It's called Calendar of an Anti-Religious Person. And this is 1931. And look what's inside. It has these days. So at that time, there was a 6-day week calendar. And you can see 6 numbers. And actually you see some of the old, because that's already 1939, and there was a comeback of some of the traditional things, like the names of the days of the week, but still you can see day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 of the 6-day week. And also this is January 1939, you see this famous quote from Marx that religion is a sigh of an oppressed creature, the soul of the soulless world, the spirit of the spiritless timelessness. This is the opium for the people, Karl Marx. And as we walk through the gallery, I made this little video. I'll just keep talking about Soviet New Year. But in the end of 1935, the tradition was back. Stalin began to revive some of the family values, probably because of the sharp drop of birth rate. The families began, the family structure began to deteriorate. And there was some other things that happened at that time to strengthen the family, but also the reintroduction of a New Year holiday as a family holiday, as a holiday oriented or intended mostly for children. And January 1st, 1936 was the first Soviet New Year. All the religious connotations of this holiday were lost. There was no Christmas mentioned, but New Year was back. The winter holiday was back. And all the traditions that the country used to have when we celebrated Christmas before the revolution were recoded, resignified, reinvented, and rethought. There was a tree with the red star on top, and the ornaments were, especially in the early decades of the Soviet New Year, had Soviet themes. Like there were tanks and a lot of airplanes and dirigibles. There were a lot of stars and hammer and sickles, and there were a lot of forest animals and characters from Russian fairy tales, and also from literary stories for children. And here we see a character from Pushkin's poem, The Fisherman and the Fish, a tale of the fisherman and the fish. Pushkin survived and always survived all regimes and all the czars and Soviet leaders and post-Soviet leaders. He is our #1 poet, believed to create the contemporary Russian language, early 19th century, heavily studied at school back before the revolution, during the Soviet era, and now. Pushkin is, as the popular saying goes, Pushkin is our all, which a lot of people make fun of, but nevertheless, masks and ornaments based on Pushkin stories were quite popular in the Soviet Union. And here you can see an enlargement of a photograph from Kim's collection from 1962. And on the back of this photograph, this says to Lisa, probably the little daughter or niece of that man, that you can see January 1962, the tale of the fisherman by Pushkin. So we know for sure that this is a character from Pushkin. And that's why when I saw this mask in Kim's collection, I immediately thought it must be a fisherman from Pushkin's tales. Who else can it be? So we appropriately dressed him in, this is a shirt that was not made by us. Actually, Michael Waltz, my assistant, curatorial assistant, contributed this shirt very appropriately, because quite often in Soviet times, when people tried to create these costumes, they would just retrofit their own clothing. Like they use their shirts and jackets and pants and skirts and hats to create a costume. Costumes were not available. A variety of fabrics was not available. Cotton was, because Russian and Soviet textile factories were always strong on cotton fabric. And here you can see in this photograph a costume that was made from scratch from available materials. And that's what we tried to recreate. And I think it's just amazing how close it is. Only our man in the photograph has his own face, but he has a beard. And we had this mask, most likely, I would say late 1930s, probably early 1950s, just looking at how masterfully it's made, probably in one of those small production shops that were still around at that time. Like cooperative artels, they were called, small production shops that produced a lot of pressed cotton ornaments at that time, cardboards, and also masks. And the tale of the fisherman, you can see this label here. If you come to the exhibition, you will read about it and you will know what the tale is about. And here is our Puss-in-Boots. This is one of the reasons I asked Kim that question about a very special ornament that she has. And I hoped she would talk about Puss-in-Boots, and she did. Thank you, Kim. And here it is. Here is this ornament that Kim was talking about, that she was hunting for a long time. It's a wonderful ornament. And these early Soviet ornaments, handmade and hand painted, sometimes they're so expressive, so wonderfully made in these individual small shops that was somewhat below the radar of the government, of the state, I would say. And so they made these little gems and treasures of tree ornament art and craft. And also Kim has the mask of the Puss-in-Boots, and we created this costume. All these costumes are quite simple. They could be made in a Soviet home. This green cape that our Puss-in-Boots has, this is actually an apron. And quite often in a Soviet household, probably these capes would be just aprons repurposed for a costume. These pants are in fact scrubs. Pants are difficult to make, so that's why we had to order some scrubs. They are very cheap, they're like $10, very plain, and they just worked for us. Otherwise, all of other things were created from scratch here. And I would like also to thank Sam, who is our seamstress, who helped us make some of these costumes. and one of the grandfather frosts. It was a tradition in the Soviet New Year to put a figurine, usually two, of the grandfather frost and the snow maiden Snegurочка under the New Year tree. So every New Year tree, and next year we are going to show a number of photographs from Kim's collection, mostly from the 50s and 60s, but some of them are from the 1930s. And this is not the grandfather frost Kim was talking about, but it is the exactly same figurine as you can see on this photograph from, I believe, 1960s. And that's what is so great about Kim's collection. You look at the photograph and you can literally put together this tree because Kim would have these things. And I found some. Look at this bird. It's a cardboard bird. This is the bird on our tree. That's the exact same bird, not the same bird as in that tree, but the bird that was produced at the exact same time from the same pattern. It's the same batch. And look at this bird here. It's a dove. This is also on our tree on display now in the gallery. Look at the giraffe. And here it is. And look at the mushrooms. And we have the mushrooms. And these little dolls, look at this doll and this. They are. And these were small batches of ornaments, probably, I don't know, 100 to 200, because these were small production units. And we have that doll. Also, it's not easy to find research material, especially on masks, even though now a lot of people in Russia, not a lot, of course, but there are very avid and passionate collectors of Soviet tree ornaments in Russia now, and they begin to publish catalogs and research studies on tree ornaments, and not a lot on masks though. But I found this photograph in Kim's collection from January 1st, 1940. These children will soon be, and their families will soon be plunged into a horrible war, but they don't know it yet. And this inscription says Happy New Year, 1940. And look at these two masks. So we have the piglet that has a hat similar to our mask of a pig, and a tiger probably. So that's why it's so helpful to have these additional materials in the collection that would help to date and to just know more about these objects. First, I thought that masks were mostly made in the 50s, especially after the film Carnival Night was released by the Mosfilm Studios. It became extremely popular. It showed Masquerade in the House of Culture of one of Soviet organizations, with a lot of people wearing costumes and beautiful masks. That's like late 1950s. And this photograph shows that masks became quite popular already 4 years after New Year became again allowed and an official holiday, and they were made. These masks don't look like they were made by these children or by these families. And our mask could be late 1930s. It could be also from the 1950s. Also, we have a wonderful mask of a clown. And as I mentioned before at the beginning of our talk, this exhibition is about masks, and everything else is connected to masks here. And so if we have a mask of a clown, and we have two clowns actually in this exhibition, I would make a selection of ornaments from Kim's collection that would feature clowns and some other circus objects, circus theme. So you can see it here. You can see these clowns over here, dressed in these pointy hats, similar to our costume, 2 colors, only ours is red and yellow. And also these little clowns. These are for sure from the late 1930s, very fragile, very nicely made, beautiful ornaments. Bunnies, for some reason, were some of the most popular costumes and masks especially in Soviet era kindergartens, probably because they were so easy to make. You only needed, a bed sheet, bed linen, and then you could make a little bunny out of your son or daughter. And we have 2 bunnies, 2 bunny masks and 2 bunny costumes, 2 bunnies actually in our exhibition. And there is a tree dedicated to bunnies. Kim has a wonderful selection of these bunnies coming from the same workshop. Late 1930s, probably interrupted by the war, resumed late 1940s into 1950s, when late 1950s, early 1960s, all of these production units went out of business, especially mid 1960s, when mass-produced ornaments began to appear in Soviet toy stores and Soviet stores for children. And they were cheap, they were shiny, and that's why these ornaments that took quite a lot of time and work to be produced stopped being produced. That's why they are so rare today. And these bunnies are just extremely unique and charming. And under that tree, you see a little scene, fox hunting and bunny. Come to the gallery and see this in person. Now let's look at the masks that have literary characters behind them. And these characters were quite popular. For example, Dr. Aibolit, coming from the poem and story in prose by Kornei Chukovsky. Kornei Chukovsky was a wonderful children's writer, especially his short poems were so written with such a great language that was easy to understand for children. It was pleasant to recite for parents. I read stories from Kornei Chukovsky to my children all the time when we lived in Russia, and my kids were born in Russia, but grew up here. And they enjoyed it. They still remember little quotes from these poems. So Dr. Aibolit, which means ouch, it hurts in English, and he is similar to Dr. Dolittle. He is the kind doctor that helps animals. He's actually based on a real character, and we have a story about this doctor in the gallery, and you're welcome to come and read that story. This doctor lived in Vilnius, and Kornei Chukovsky visited him, and then was so inspired by his kindness. He wrote in his memoirs that this was the kindest person he ever met in his life. He helped poor children for free and even treated their pets. He was a prominent member of the Lithuanian Jewish community, and come and read his story in our exhibition. Dr. Aibolit went to Africa. This is how Kornei Chukovsky's story goes, to heal monkeys and hippos from stomachache. And a very appropriate companion to our Dr. Aibolit in our exhibition is this monkey. And again, the mask is just wonderfully made. I would say it's probably early 30s, no later than late 50s, hand sculpted, hand painted, and really a unique work. Another story that was quite popular in the Soviet Union and became part of the canon of Soviet children's literature came from an Italian communist writer, Gianni Rodari. And the story is about the vegetable or garden kingdom of fruits and vegetables, where the fruit like lemon and orange are pressed for vegetables like onion, which is food for the common folk in Italy. So the main two characters of the story are boy onion and girl radish that you can see here, and also the evil Signor Tomato and Prince Lemon. There are 4 pieces from 4 ornaments from this set, but Kim has the entire set, which is extremely rare nowadays. And they say that nowadays it is sold for $10,000 just for a set of ornaments, which number 19. We have the whole set. We are really proud of it. It's very rare and unique. The set of Cipollino. The story by Gianni Rodari was called Cipollino, which means little onion in Italian. And it tells the story of the family of onions. And Cipollino's father once steps on the foot of Prince Lemon that we can see here in the distance, and hurts his, well, not hurts, he just steps on his foot and gets imprisoned for that, for life. And Cipollino sets out to free his father and all other working people unjustly imprisoned in the jail, jailed by the powerful fruit. And so he leads a popular revolt, a revolution, and frees the garden kingdom from the oppressors. And it becomes the country of free and happy vegetables. So a very communist message, but it was well written. And I remember I liked this story. There was a cartoon, and these adventures of these of these vegetables, Uncle Pumpkin and Old Man Bean, and all of these very fascinating little characters in this story were very interesting to read for a child. And we also have 2 masks of Cipollino and Girl Radish, his friend. So these costumes are very simply made. It's just fabric and a little apron cut out in the shape of a leaf. It's not hemmed, it's just cut out. And these overalls we got from Amazon, blue. It was really hard to find because the blue color for overalls, I believe, is French. So French workers wear this kind of overalls for work, and it was not easy to find, but we did. And the shirt was contributed by our wonderful installation specialist, Ginny Tyson. It's her shirt. And that's what would have happened back in Soviet times. We would just reuse our old clothes to create costumes. And you see here only the mask tells the story of the character. The rest of it you could just find at home or at your friend's house. And this is our wonderful mask of the sad clown. Look how beautiful it's made. I don't know, probably it's one mask that was part of, no, it's unlikely. I wanted to say that it came from a theater, but I saw similar masks produced at 3 ornament shops and factories. And at last we arrived at 2 key characters in any Soviet era New Year celebration, actually 3. So the 2 of them you can see on on the left of your screen, and this is Grandfather Frost and Snow Maiden, or Snegurочка in Russian, Snow Maiden, his granddaughter. They were part of every New Year performance, and this part of the gallery is set as a stage in a way that would, I remember I went to dozens of New Year performances like this as a child, and there would be a Grandfather Frost for sure with his red bag of gifts and the Snow Maiden, and there would be the tree, but something would happen and an evil character, like this Baba Yaga, for example. Baba Yaga would either steal the tree or steal a bag of gifts, or sometimes she would lure Grandfather Frost himself into her depths, the depths of the woods, of the forest, and then the children would have to all together, sitting in the audience, would have to say some magic words to bring the Grandfather Frost back. Or sometimes the Baba Yaga would hide him behind a tree, and the Snow Maiden, his granddaughter, would be all at a loss. She just would not be able to find him, and all the children in the audience would cry or would shout and yell, "Here he is behind the tree, can't you see him?" And the Snow Maiden would say, no, I don't know, I can't find him, what should I do, I can't see him anywhere. So there was this kind of a, children audience involvement in the performance that was always so much fun. That's why I still remember it. And here is our Baba Yaga. And these 2 masks come from the collection of Blaine Balden, which I'm very grateful to Blaine. I worked with him for many years. He contributed to our many exhibitions. He's a wonderful person, fun to be with, and I thank Blaine, who worked at one point for the American Embassy in Moscow about the same time when Kim was there. I think they crossed paths there. And his collection is small, but he was perceptive enough, and he had a wonderful vision of a collectors to collect, to buy some of these very rare masks. And now we have 2 wonderful Baba Yaga masks from Blaine, and I can't imagine a New Year holiday without some kind of an evil character, a Baba Yaga, a wonderful and fascinating character from Russian fairy tales. So Baba Yaga is kind of a witch of the Russian forest, but very different from Western witches because she's both good and bad. She's scary. She sometimes tries to eat children. Of course, she never succeeds in at least those fairy tales that I read as a child, already processed for a 20th century child, not so scary. But she would help those who would go to the deep forest in search of a lost lover, a lost husband, or a lost wife, or a lost love. She would help them, which some researchers think because she is the former pre-Christian goddess of the Slavic people. They're part of the pantheon of gods for the nation, for the many ethnic groups that inhabited that area where Russia is now. And this is our Grandfather Frost, a wonderful mask from Kim Balashak's collection. And now we are back in the gallery, and I'm ready to answer your questions. And also, I hope if Kim is here, she will be available to answer whatever questions you have. And let me stop sharing my screen.
All right. I am just going to do one thing here. All right. So now we're all here. Thank you, Masha, so much. We have one question from the gallery that I'd like to ask you about, and it goes back to one of the trees, one of the ornaments that featured a few mushroom ornaments. And this particular person wanted to know if there's any symbolism to the mushroom.
There is no symbolism. The only symbolism there is that it symbolizes the love of the Russian people for mushroom hunting. You know how some mycologists, scholars or scientists who study mushrooms, they divide all world cultures into mushroom loving and mushroom fearing cultures. So the Americans are mushroom fearing, Russians are mushroom loving culture. Here we have mushroom hunters that are like a specialized interest group. In Russia, it's the entire population. There are very few people who don't like to do it, who don't do it at least once every fall. And Kim's collection has at least a couple dozen mushrooms, if not more, I believe. And they were always included in, I remember my New Year trip from my childhood. Yeah, we had mushrooms. Yes, we love them.
I have another question now to Kim about wanting to know more about how you went about creating this collection. Did you always go to flea markets? Was it in multiple visits? Can you tell us more about how you went about gathering this vast collection of yours?
Well, back in the mid-90s, when I started to collect, there really wasn't much value placed on these items by the Russian people. They'd lived with them for so many years, even, obviously decades. And so many of my Russian friends would tell me that all they wanted was a tree with baubles of all the same color on them. And I found the ornaments obviously, charming and fascinating. And so I started to find them at the flea markets because they weren't really any other place. They weren't in the antique shops. There was really nothing written about them. And so most of my collection came from the flea market, and I started acquiring them in 1998, and my husband left in 2008. So it was about a 10-year period. And I would go out to the flea market, Izmailova in Moscow, with my Siberian felt boots, starting in mid-November when the ornaments would start to turn up, and with my flashlight, and try to get there before anybody else. Didn't always happen.
Tell the viewers how many pieces were in your collection.
Well, Masha, I think we've got close to about 5,000 pieces, including all of the postcards and the photographs and all.
Yeah, it's possible, because if you count there are also newspapers and publications and ornaments. I think close to 5,000. You're right.
I think that number is it's good for everyone to hear. It's so vast. It's a huge collection.
Yeah, it has not been accessioned fully yet. We still have this year and next year. That's why I don't have the complete number after this year, and close to the end of next year, I'll just go into our collections database and enter Kim's name, and we will get the exact number. Mm-hmm. But at this point, it's still up in the air.
Masha, can you talk a little bit more about your process in creating this particular exhibition? Maybe some of your favorite sort of moments as you were developing this particular, I know that some of the process has to do with looking through the collection. Tell us about what putting this one together was like for you.
So masks are simple to exhibit in a way. They are large versus smaller ornaments that are so difficult sometimes to install. And they're kind of straightforward. They tell these stories, and personally, but I began to look at some of the materials in Kim's publications collection, and I found these amazing things. I just want to show them to you. These are the, oh, can you see them? No.
No, not with your background.
No, let me turn off my background. So
leave the gallery.
yeah, I'm leaving the gallery and going into my office so that I could show you these patterns to make your own masks. And they're not quite simple, but there are quite a lot of them. And you can see this. And also you can recognize our bunny that we have in the exhibition and the clown. So it's always so great to discover these materials in Kim's collection that's great research materials, and they are potentially very rich in how they can be displayed. And I hope that next year we could create a show that will be entirely based on paper objects. And first I came up with this title, Paper Christmas, but of course it's not Christmas, I realized. So now I will have to rethink the name of the show, but I would like to show these, magazines and these interesting things such as these patterns and also other things made of paper. There are quite a number of ornaments made of paper in Kim's collection. So it will be all about paper next year. So I love these little discoveries that I always make when I work with this collection.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of those mask patterns, for those of you out there listening, we are going to be having a Soviet mask workshop with Masha and I coming up in December. So if you'll watch for our announcements and our calendar, we'll also be posting some patterns so that you can make some at home. And I think we have time now. I'm so glad that you're here, Kim. It's so great to see you. Did you have any thoughts since this is your first time seeing this exhibition? Any things that you want to say? I know that you're not here in person as you normally are, but any final comments from you?
Every minute that I spend with Masha is a minute I learn something new in my life. And I'm sitting here in Russian, it's Marashki beguyut. And it basically means that I've got goosebumps running up and down my arms. And that's how I felt going through this exhibition. And as always, it's just so special. And I wish I could be there for the mask workshop. But
it'll be virtual. You can come see it.
I could not imagine a better place for my exhibition, for my collection to be, because every year is a learning experience, and more comes up, and Masha's way of sharing the history of her very special country, it's magical. And I'm touched, I'm moved, and thank you to all of you at the museum. Mark, thank you for everything that you're doing to support all of this, the museum, and keep it going. And I love this museum. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. And thank you, Masha. Anything more you want to say before we say goodbye to everyone?
I would like to just encourage everyone to come here in person, because it's one thing to see it on flat screen, but you know, objects that you see in a museum, they have an aura, they have an ambience, they have this emotional impact that when we are in the presence of these things. And I am very happy to see Kim, even if just on the screen. And I hope that next year, and this is my wish for the next year, because we're beginning to enter the holiday season with this show, that we will be able to travel more and be together in person. Like these two behind Michelle, the Grandfather Frost and the Snow Maiden.
Thank you everyone for being with us. As Mark mentioned, this program will be recorded and will be posted on our website. We have another virtual tour, our last one of Leaders in the Masses, on November 18th. That's next Wednesday at 11 a.m. Please stay tuned to all of our announcements. This is also a giving season. Early giving has started for Give MN, and we have a matching opportunity. So your donation makes a big difference from now through Give to the Max Day on the 19th. Thank you for being with us. It's always fun to do this, although we would much rather be seeing you in person in the galleries. And Masha, she said it very well. It's a very moving experience to come to this exhibition. It's also really gratifying to stand amongst a bunch of figures, to feel like you're in a crowd. So if you're able to come, we do encourage it. It's a very safe and wonderful place to be. So with that, be safe, and we hope to see you all soon. Take care.
Thank you.